you're there and big swell is on the way and you expect it to fill in overnight, you start to hear it, you know, like you'll hear occasional just crack, like thunderclap, just. And you know, it gets your attention. You're just like, oh man, like how big is it out there? It's as wild a wave as you can ever hope to see. It just looks like a wall of water.
You can only feel it when you're out there, when you're around them, when you're around that wave.
Insane drop, very intense barrel, crazy speed, like almost like a dream you're chasing, but you have to go through hell.
That place makes you an unknown person to a hero.
The wave dynamics in play and the power, it's like nothing I've ever seen. Teahupo'o is on the island of Tahiti, which is roughly in the middle of the Pacific Oceans in the South Pacific, about 20 degrees south latitude.
Tahiti is divided in two parts, Tahiti Nui, which means big Tahiti, and Tahiti Iti, which means small Tahiti. And you have to drive pretty much all the way to the end of the road. That's why it has the nickname, the end of the road. And the wave is located right there in front of this river that created that beautiful pass of Hawaii. And it's pretty much the best setup that you can ask for to get a wave like that.
Teahupo'o, that's how you pronounce Teahupo'o. It means the wall of skulls. From day one, I guess he was pretty serious, and until now, he's still serious.
Teahupo'o is so special because of everything around it, from the mountain to the river to the community. Crystal clear water, shallow reef, beautiful wave. Everything is magical.
It's a wave that presents as beautiful and idyllic, or at least a setting that presents as that, but it's completely overtaken by the terror that it produces in people.
Everything is like about milliseconds, and every mistake you do, you can fall and you can get really hurt, and it's so scary. So like, it's the most intense feeling in the world.
The way the waves approach the reef, you just look at it and you're like, gosh, that doesn't seem like that is going to be rideable at all. And I think for a long time, it kind of wasn't considered rideable, really just the last 30-ish years or so. So it's kind of like this contrast in presentation and things that you see. So it's as wild a wave as you can ever hope to see. The prime season for swell at Teahupo'o is the Southern Hemisphere winter, from April through October. You tend to see your biggest swells and most consistent swells a little bit earlier in the season, so really like late fall in the Southern Hemisphere, so like late April and through May. You know, warmer air, warmer moist air that's getting pulled down from the north. You know, it's that clash of warm moist air and cold dry air. You can see those storm tracks just get stronger, storms are stronger, and that's when you often see the biggest swells of the year. The biggest and best swells are ones that are coming up, you know, out of the Southern Ocean, past New Zealand, and then lifting towards Tahiti. You want those storms to move to your location, to your area of interest, and those are the biggest and best swells. You know, if you just want to go and surf Teahupo'o and it's not giant, it doesn't take much swell. You know, if you had like a 3-foot swell at 13 seconds and you're an intermediate or above surfer, like you go and have a blast on that. I mean, yeah, there's not many waves around the world where it's like, it can be really fun at shoulder to head high, but it'll hold up to, you know, 50 foot, 60 foot, whatever it is. Yeah, what are you looking for? What do you want? And Teahupo'o can probably deliver.
Depending on the swell direction, the wave can be really different. on the early stage of my career, I was really enjoying those south swell. I really enjoy going deeper than anyone.
When it's more south, it goes deeper, but like maybe less impressive of the wave because it doesn't grow as much on the end. When it's more west, it bends more towards the reef, and it's like scarier, I feel like, because it looks like more of a closeout, and it can be more of a closeout.
I love the one coming south-southwest. South-southwest, it gets round.
That's a good mixture of longer lined up waves, but with that still good West Bowl heavy section.
First priorities with Kelly. He needs a 9 to take the lead. Glides in. Beautiful stall in the pit. The wave unloads and Kelly comes out.
If it's like, okay, we want like the best WSL contest ever or whatever, you know, I would say you want like an 8 to 10 foot swell at like 15 to 16 seconds. It's more approachable. It's still paddleable at that size, but still tall. So that would be, you know, kind of semi-mortal size.
I think for the period, it has to be over 15 to 16, like over 15, 16. If it goes to 18, good luck.
You know, as you get up into like the tail range, that's when you're starting to look at 10 to 12 feet or larger deep water swell, probably a little bit longer period too. The way the wave moves and the way it breaks, it just gets to a certain size where it's like, you don't have any chance to paddle it.
I really enjoy a big toe swell. There's way more consequences if you fall on a toe wave, you know, you can get really smashed on the reef, but I'm not as scared as I am when I'm paddling, you know. But I also really love seeing a 10 to 12 foot swell to be able to push our limits with the boys, you know, with Eimeo, Kaoli, Tika. We have a goal in mind. We want to get the biggest paddle wave, and
I feel like chops, there's a certain size where it's like getting really hard to paddle. We're all trying to push the limits, but like from 10 to 12 foot, and it's like, whoa, already 12 foot paddling is like really huge, you know. And then once it passes 12 to 15 foot, it's like the drop is almost impossible.
it's more stressful because I feel more comfortable surfing without wetsuit, helmet, you know, I have to be like completely free, and it also comes with the risk of more chance to get smashed on the reef, you know, so it's definitely more scary to turn around when there's a 12-footer in front of you and you just have to paddle as hard as you can to make the wave.
You know, go back 20 years, 30 years or whatever, it was kind of like 10-foot local scale, you know, so roughly 15 to 20-foot faces. That was kind of like the toe paddle line, I think, for the most part. And it's been inching up, so we're like, oh yeah, guys are starting to paddle when it's like 12 foot. And guys are, you know, at least looking at it when it's even approaching like 15 foot.
I think when it gets over 12 foot and you stick to paddling, it's for sure harder when it's more south. When the west is just like getting bigger, you have that little entry right behind it. So it makes the wave almost slower, but more heavy. But you get that entry, I think, on the more westward, so it's definitely harder when it's more south.
I think, you know, we'll probably see a wave paddle into that's like, you know, 15-foot local scale, so roughly 25-foot face or so. We'll probably see that paddled into, and maybe arguably you could say maybe it has been already, but get up into that range where it's a bigger deep water swell, but the swell period's a little bit shorter. So say like a 12, 13-foot deep water swell, but maybe the swell period's like a little shorter, 14, 15 seconds. So it's just, yeah, these just little levers, little dials that you kind of, you push and pull, and each swell is just a little bit different. The geologic history of Tahiti, very similar to the Hawaiian Islands, just over a hot spot on the earth, and you have these volcanoes that build up over time.
What creates the waves is the rivers that comes from the mountains, and it gets through the ocean. And you gotta know that coral reef doesn't really like fresh water. So it creates those cracks in the reef, the passes that we have, and it creates the wave we have around Tahiti. And something happened in Teahupo'o where it shaped the best wave in the world for me, you know.
The reef at Chopes, I think the thing that makes it unique is just how quickly we go from really deep water to really shallow water. You know, you go a couple miles offshore and it's 5,000 feet deep. No swell is even going to be able to feel the bottom at 5,000 feet. And even just a third of a mile offshore is still about 1,000 feet deep. And that's just when really long period swells are starting to feel the bottom around 1,000 feet. So you have this pure open ocean energy and speed intact as it moves into the shallow water bathymetry.
It's almost like there's two levels to the bottom of Teahupo'o. To explain, it goes up and then it goes flat for 200 meters. I think that's where all the energy kind of like concentrate before hitting the first ledge that create those big waves.
And you continue to move in closer, and it just goes from very deep to very shallow abruptly. And that's why we have such a hollow, slabby wave, some kind called like a plunging wave or even a surging wave.
So when the wave comes, it's all of a sudden it's like a big wall that just stays at the same level of the ocean, and then the wave forms itself underneath. So when you're sitting out the back and you look back at a 5-meter wave that just broke, you're at the same level as the wave because it's breaking underneath sea level. That's what makes it so mind-blowing and out of this world.
You know, it's a short wave. It's short and intense, where most people are taking off on, say, like a double overhead day. It's relatively deep, 8 to 10 feet of water, but then it gets very shallow very quickly. Yeah, I mean, you'll be in knee-deep water like that.
The reef, it's coral reef and it's alive, so it's not really strong. It's like breakable, but it cuts really bad. And there's also holes and stuff like that, so it's really dangerous.
I've been surfing around the world a lot now, and I noticed that nowhere else in the world is like the reef in Tahiti, where it's so alive. So pretty much what makes Teahupo'o so special is that channel that allows the boat to be so close to the wave, and it's pretty much a crack in the middle of the reef, so it pretty much separates the lump that comes from the outside into two parts. So you have the surfable wave on the left of the boat, and then you have the right, which is for me the worst place you can end up in Teahupo'o. This is the nightmare, you know, because for some reason you don't get pushed in the lagoon there. It just brings you back to the impact zone, push you in, brings you back, push you in, and you can do that forever. If I had to give an advice to anyone, is to avoid as much as possible the right.
I think having really good local conditions it's probably more important at Chopes than certainly than average spots. It's a hollow wave. It's a barreling wave. That's really all you're doing when you're going to surf Chopes. And so you need good wind. Typical wind pattern, prevailing winds are trades, east-southeast to southeasterly trades. High pressure is kind of located to the south of Tahiti. Fortunately, those trades are offshore, especially the more east it is, the better it is. As it comes around to the southeast, it's kind of a little cross shore up to the top of the reef.
The trade wind is the southeast wind, you know? You still ride the wave because outside is like rough. And when you get into the wave, it's glassy, beautiful, because the wind blows behind it, you know? It's not the northeast wind where it blows into the barrel, you know?
In theory, the best wind would be northeast But something happened where the wind goes through Tahiti Nui and Tahiti Iti, and it creates this like swirl. This wind just kind of like turns around and come back west, which is the worst wind ever. So sometimes when I see a north wind on the forecast, I'm pretty skeptical about that.
It can be very tricky to forecast winds locally in Tahiti and Chopes especially. You know, going up into the mountains, that valley can really funnel winds. And like, I've seen winds there that were offshore that synoptically speaking had no business being offshore. Meaning like, there's a low pressure area right here. I look 20 miles out that way out to sea, and it's howling onshore out of the southwest at like 25 knots. But right here on the point, it's coming out of the valley like 5 knots out of the northeast. Anything from the south up to the west and northwest are winds you want to avoid.
And also sometimes for like 2 or 3 weeks, you will have what's called maramu. It's the wind from over there, so it goes from that's like here.
It's technically kind of cross offshore southeast, but it's really strong. Those happen when you get like a really strong radio high pressure that just moves in from the west underneath Tahiti. Sometimes it'll lock in for like days, weeks at a time. You get a lot of rain that way.
The best wind for me is Noe. Yeah, Iglesia is my favorite. Second favorite, northeast. Not too strong.
Get the chance as a surf fan, and you can go down there and be in the channel on a bigger, clean, good swell. I can't recommend it enough.
I think when the swells hit the reef, they're like a freight train, you know? They just don't stop.
Every time I go out there, I'm really scared. You know, there's this pressure that, you know, it's Teahupo'o, it's big, it's scary, it's powerful. But I also know that if I'm able to like overcome that, I can get the best wave of my life.
You know, at some point it kind of stops growing tall somewhat, and it just keeps getting wider and wider and wider. So it's just as like intimidating a wave as I think there is.
When it's big, you gotta be on your A game. You can't just take it easily, you know? It's about you, your commitment, you know?
It's the hardest part of the ride for me to decide to turn around on the wave that you want and make the drop.
Like if you go for a wave and you're going, then you're going, you know, because you might get sucked over or get the one behind on the head, like just full commitment, I'll say.
And the drop is the most intense part of the wave because so much water is coming out towards you.
You have to stick the drop first before turning, because if you turn too early, you're gonna skip down the face. Once you make the bottom turn, it's all about trusting your line.
You set your line and then it just starts throwing, and when it throws, you're in this slow motion, powerful energy tunnel.
You can hear people yelling, oh, and like you can hear some yell, but the most important is coming from behind, where the sound of the wave coming so fast, and the speed, you know?
It's a fire hose on some of those waves. Like the strength of the spit, the amount of water that's getting blown out of the barrel, like, yeah, just turn on the fire hose and hose down the jump.
And all you look here is a light. Where's the light? That means this is the way out. Follow the light, and then
once you come out in the channel, maybe you might run over a couple photographers, maybe into a boat, and it's just everything's so intense, but that's what makes it so rewarding once you make a barrel out there.
The channel's whistling and people are hooting because a set's approaching. Everyone's starting to freak out and standing up in the boat. This crazy wide barrel, the prettiest landscape you could ever want, and then sometimes dozens or even hundreds of people on the channel just all willing for you to come out.
It's also really scary when you fall out there. The falls are heavy, no joke. It's a slab and it's on dry reef, so it's like the danger is definitely there.
It's so scary when especially when you see somebody eating it. Especially when you hear people, ooh, from the boat, ooh, like, and you're on the next one, and everybody look at you and they go, you going? You going? Teahupo'o is gonna put you back on your seat, on your place, to calm you down. Like, that's enough, or let's do it again. But there's only one way or the other,
I think I've learned so much from Teahupo'o that it's okay to be scared, because I'm still gonna go out and I'm still gonna try. And I feel like it's like that in anything in life.
Teahupo'o really kept me away from like a bad path in my life, When you get that shot of adrenaline when you're 14 years old, it just changed your whole perception of things, and I really wanted to do that for the rest of my life.
I mean, this wave is like, I think one of the most, if not the most well-known thing about Tahiti. I feel like it means a lot for all of us,
Before, we used to look at them, foreigners. We look at the foreigners charging. Now, I think it's changing. Foreigners are looking at the Tahitians, how they charge it, how they surf it, It's turning.
It's probably the greatest spectator venue on Earth to be in the channel on a really big, really good day. It's captivating in its intensity and its beauty, and you just want to watch it.
All the boats, all the cameramen, like, you're connecting with so many people, even though it was just from this barrel that you just got, but you come out, you share that with everybody around you, and there's nowhere else that you can feel that much connection with yourself and also with other people and the wave.
Teahupo'o gave me everything, and that's what I did all my life, That's what made me who I am now. She dictates us, we don't dictate her,